Okay, we're over there.
Hi, everybody, it's 7:01, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Old Saybrook Board of Education to order. And we'll start by doing the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Steve is running us here.
Awesome. Okay. So our first order of business tonight is we are going to recognize Kathy Bai. Again.
Never recognized.
Thank you. I want to thank you so much for your years of service and your dedication to the schools, to students, teachers, administrators. Congratulations for your accomplishments, and we really wish you the best.
Can I speak?
Go right
Can I
ahead.
speak?
Yes.
Only because you never do what I just did. Don't prepare a speech and then talk because you leave people out. But having said that, I have an opportunity to my administrative colleagues, because I didn't specifically thank you. I think you all know how much I've appreciated your support, your partnership. You know, it's all of our kids. And I will always be grateful for that. But Gina, I will tell you what a gift it is to have a superintendent. When you go in there and say, we need this, you said it, but who says, okay, Kathy, and to have the trust in me. From day one, you had trust in me that, you know, I was being responsible to, you know, to our citizens and all of that, but and trying my best to, but that it was always about the kids. And never once did you, you know, make me feel guilty for spending a lot of money on something because we knew that it was important. I could always walk in that door and she always had a minute for you. I don't know how you do that because you have all of us that come in there and do that, but you always had that time, and what a blessing that has been. I mean, if I didn't have that, you wouldn't be secure to do your job, so I'll be always grateful. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't say that in the big group. It's out of body when you do that, you know.
You made me tear up. Quintessentialism.
Yeah, he is the best. Yeah, thank you. That is beyond kind. Been a joy to work with you. Gonna miss you.
Okay. The next item on our agenda are reports from our student board and education representatives.
And so before we get into that, I'd like to announce our two board representatives for next year in attendance. If you guys would like to introduce yourself.
I'm Sam Hanover. I'm Amelia Wacker.
So yeah, they're just going to be watching tonight, getting a good feel of what we do here, and they'll be taking over mine and Elliot's position next year. So
Welcome.
Congratulations,
Dave.
Yeah.
Awesome to have you join us, and you will have your own nameplate.
Yeah.
That's why I signed up.
I know. Make sure she gets a nameplate.
yeah, I heard it was quite a process this year. There were a lot of
Good
applicants.
That's
So
great.
congratulations to
And John knows he can take his home.
that. Mhm.
Yes, yeah. You can take me there, off to school, wherever you go.
I'll put it on my bunk bed in my dorm.
There you go.
I'll nail to the wood.
So are they juniors? Are you juniors?
Currently, we're sophomores, but next year we're both gonna be juniors.
Great.
All right, so a decent amount has happened in the past couple of weeks. It's been very filled. First off, we had both underclassmen and senior awards nights. Though, I mean, I only attended the senior awards nights, but I've heard the underclassmen awards went pretty smoothly. And as far as senior awards go, I thought it was a really good ceremony. And I mean, lots of money going around. I think it was over $200,000 in scholarships, which is very impressive. So yeah, congratulations to all our seniors and underclassmen as well. It was a great couple of days there. Our NHS National Honor Society group, they conducted their service project. We made stress balls during the flex period. And though it was a little bit messy, we all had to clean that up. It was a fun time, and we had a lot of participation from underclassmen. Prom happened. There were some mixed reviews on that. Personally, I had a good enough time to where I thought it was a good night, but I've heard things from all over the spectrum. But yeah, we'll just move on. Seniors had their class trip to Six Flags this past Friday, and that went pretty well. Except I will own up, I did cause a bit of a delay because I did not know when our departure time was, but I'd own up here on the biggest stage. It's my fault. I apologize in Spain. All right, so Taj night is happening right now. I just came from that. It was my first ever Taj night, and I had a pretty good time. I unfortunately got positioned right at the front floor when everyone was walking in, so I think I presented my poster a good 12, 13 times. But I was walking around, I saw the awesome art, I heard the music. It was a really good atmosphere and environment. That's where Elliot is right now. He's playing with the jazz combo, so yeah, it's going pretty well. So another thing that I wanted to bring up was a project conducted by our 8th grade here in the middle school. It was called the Witness Stone Project, led by Mr. Labriola and Mr. Carroll. This project involved 8th graders writing poems and narratives, as well as making art and singing in their chorus. This was in honor of a slave once owned by the Hart family, who lived at the General William Hart House here in town. The research was conducted based on original documents that they had gotten from the Historical Society. And it was, from what I understand, a really good opportunity for these students to learn about our history, as well as bring light to an underrepresented individual, and as well as a darker spot of our community's history. So that was more of a memorial style presentation of all of that art and music and writing, and it was really, really heartfelt from what I heard.
Hey, John, can I just share a little bit? At the end of the presentation, Mark Carroll had gotten in touch with one of the descendants of this slave, Rose, who wasn't able to attend. I think she lives in upstate New York, but she sent this beautiful message, and it was read at the end by Mr. Labriola. And she said, thank you for giving her voice. And it was very touching. It was very touching. And I know how hard those kids worked on it. And I know how hard the adults worked on it. I know that the Tuesday that we were off, Mr. Labriola was at the Historical Society, making sure everything was ready to go. And nice little follow-up, it will be covered hopefully tomorrow morning on Connecticut Public Radio. They were there through the whole thing. They audio recorded the whole event. So it'll be covered somewhere between 7 and 8 a.m. I believe tomorrow morning.
It was like an NPR, they were right there with their microphone.
Yeah, Connecticut Public Radio, right? Yep. Yep. I'm sorry, between 7:30 and 8 a.m. tomorrow
On what?
on Connecticut Public
Okay,
Radio
okay.
and local NPR station.
Yeah, my brother's in 8th grade, and he was telling me a little bit about it, and he said it was really special. So
It was.
yeah,
And the
it's-
kids sang. It's just really a very heartfelt, touching moment.
yeah, it was really well put together. To move on to athletics, those wrapped up. Aside from track, they have New England's and nationals left. Nationals are I think the day or two, like the 2 days after graduation. So I do not believe our senior athletes are attending. But it's pretty impressive that they qualified for nationals, which is cool. This is our 4x1 team. Softball had a rough season. They finished 0-9. But it was the first year where they had combined with the Westbrook team, so they had a lot of obstacles they faced. And the people I know on the team said that it should go a lot more smoothly next year. So that's something to look forward to. Baseball ended their season 11-12. They qualified for both Shorelines and States. And States, they exited in round 2 after playing Old Line, and they lost to Valley first round of Shorelines. Lacrosse ended their season 12-5. They also qualified for both the Shoreline and State tournaments. However, they exited in the first round of both. Now we're on the upside part of our athletics here. Girls lacrosse won the Shoreline championship. They finished their season 14-5. And after winning the play-in States game, they did lose in the first round, but they won the Shoreline, so that was pretty cool. Track and field, our girls team won the track and field shoreline championship and got third place in the state tournament. I believe the boys were 7th. However, that was, there's a lot less boys participating this year than there have been in years past. The Memorial Day parade was a, yeah, I saw Miss Baker there. She was cheering us on in the band. It was really well put together, and the ceremony after was just fantastic. So yeah, if there are any questions, I'd love to answer.
Congratulations to you on your awards and scholarships that you won on awards night, and just a compliment to Amy Claffey and Sarah Fawcett who put together that, and probably, I don't know if Mr. Anastasio and Mr. Plotkin were involved, but they did such a, it really was probably one of the best awards nights that I've seen in recent several years. So it was just a really very special night.
Yeah, they did a really good job, and I mean, they brought in all the scholarship committees, the people who wanted to speak, all those videos. It was a really nice evening.
It's beautiful. Well done.
Really?
Yep, so is there a way to be able to know the various scholarships that were given and the amount? Or any new that came up this year that were something, you know, that sometimes each year, somebody might give something different? I'm just curious, now, I couldn't go to that one, but I'd love to know how much you said.
I don't,
It's in the
I don't
graduation.
know about the amount,
it?
but it's always posted in the graduation as to who won. Mr. Anastasio, is there anything you can add to that answer?
Yeah, there was a listing in the program itself. I'm not sure the amounts are revealed, but some of them were announced too as well.
And I also, I wanted to thank you and Elliot on behalf of the Board of Education for your service this year. For what you put into it, running the meetings and giving reports and answering questions from the board, so thank you very much.
Thank you all. I know we've had some roadblocks, but I'm really happy with this opportunity. I wouldn't trade it for anything else. I feel like I've learned so much this past year on just not only how a professional board works, but how to be professional to important people, because you all do so many things for our town, and it's been fantastic. Thank you all.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Jen.
We do a little bit of correspondence. First of all, the Cape Journal will be coming around to everybody, and then there's a photograph of Eileen presenting online some students with a communication award.
Yeah, I think all of them have gotten, sometimes we'll let various board of directors to go around the state, we give the awards. And so they've gotten like 3 awards for their communication, their budget, and things like that. Yeah.
Great. Moving on, I am looking, meeting minutes. I'm looking for a motion to approve the special meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Some
Alan, for a second.
Sorry, who's the second?
Karen, with Alan and
Karen.
Karen. I believe.
Oh, okay.
Any discussion, questions? Seeing there's no questions or discussion, I want for a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
We get to see. Okay.
Okay, all those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Okay, so moving on, the education issues for discussion action. The first item we have our student representative survey result.
Turn it over to Eileen. I think John just gave, you did
Yeah, I
you?
just gave turn over the access.
Okay, so you now have access to the
I do have access. See if I can maybe put it up on the screen.
screen, yep. So, and you should have Elliot's, which was in your folder earlier.
Maybe we could start with L. Well,
You did get one survey came through
it's
in your
not
notebook,
yours. Yeah.
Yeah. but the other one is must have just come in for this evening. Okay.
Let me share this really quick so that the people online can see it as well. There it is.
Bigger.
Yeah. Coming your way. With this? No? Sounds like a no. Feels like a no.
I think it looks.
There you go.
That's
better.
better. Do we want to read it out loud?
Yeah, I would say, why don't you read it out loud? That'd be great.
Well, I don't know, John, is this something you want
Yeah.
read out loud?
Yeah, probably not.
I didn't know this was happening.
Yeah, so I mean, really, the survey results are for the members of the Board of Education. We don't necessarily need to read them aloud to the whole population, but.
I can summarize.
Is there anything you'd like to highlight?
Oh, well, like I said earlier, I had an amazing experience. You guys made it very easy to kind of assimilate into your processes, and it was, I mean, very informative to me. Like I said, in both physicality of this board, and I learned a lot about myself and how to conduct myself in a professional manner. I guess like my only thing was that I wish I contributed more, but at the same time, you guys are all very educated, and there were certain moments where I will say I didn't know a lot about what was going on, but it was nice to learn. It was nice to learn about what was going on, and I felt like I did contribute where I could. Like with when we were discussing the school lunches, I feel like I was happy to contribute there. Like I said, I just wish in more situations I spoke up and not just in my allotted time. But I like I said, I had a fantastic year with everyone.
Feeling, I just would like to say that this is meant to be a growth experience for you. It's meant to be a learning experience, and you know, whatever successes or maybe not successes you've had doing this, you take that learning with you and you improve it the next time you sit on a board. And I hope you will choose to lead and be on boards and contribute to your community, to your school, wherever you go. You'll have a lot to contribute.
Thank you.
And yeah, this was meant to be learning. So I'm glad you learned.
Definitely learned.
I will add John's responses to the board notebook.
Thanks so much.
You guys can kind of read them. So I'll have those up tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Thank you.
Like I say, John, I think your input when you did speak up was very valuable and really informative to us. And it's always okay to say, could you give me a little more information about that? Because you're not exposed to the, the information that we have, but you've been a great, you've been, really good, and interested and present board reps. I really appreciate it. So.
And very poised and well spoken.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, really have that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I knew I was in for a long year when when the I think it was the first or second meeting I came, you guys were talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for like an AC system for I think it was Go to School. I'm like, oh wow.
That's what I said.
There's a lot going on there.
And I'd like to make a comment too. I coached in Little League years and years ago. So I've seen huge growth from into the years. And from Little League baseball, here you are sitting on a board, taking part in board meetings. So congratulations.
I'm just going to say that I appreciate the reflection tonight in terms of things that have happened maybe over since the fall, and being able to sort of get a sense of what a school board is and how valuable and necessary it is to have student representatives on this Board of Education. It's not an option, not to get student voice, because you are the ones that we're planning your education for, and so that's really important for your input, regardless of whether it's received well or not. It's still essential. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you. The next item is our professional development wrap up. Dr. Fletcher.
It is actually Carrie Fletcher who's going to lead us through the professional development wrap up. And just for the benefit of board members, we forget from year to year, this is something we do every year, just to talk about the professional development opportunities that have been offered to staff to support the strategic plan and to support our work. And as you know, we had a change in our head honcho and professional development land partway through the year. And yet the planning that was done over the summer with Dr. Goss and the execution that continued with Dr. Fletcher has been relatively smooth, I think, it looked that way to me. And that we continued on and tweaked and changed as we needed to. And now we'll be able to move into the next year knowing what our needs are and moving forward with that. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Kareem Fletcher.
Thank you. And I'm glad to hear you say that it seemed relatively smooth as I'm trying to spin all these plates and catch planes and trains that have left the station
Yeah.
before I arrive.
Yeah.
But hopefully I can do a nice job in summing up all of the professional learning that has occurred before I come on board and all of the learning that's happened since January. So this is a professional learning wrap up. And everything that we're doing is aligned with the goals, and the goals for this presentation is really to provide that overview for what took place from July 1 all the way till June 30th, really, of this school year. Also examine the opportunities through the lens of our strategic plan and our 3 goals, and also try to forecast where the professional learning needs will be next. So of course, this slide is actually looking at our strategic plan and the connections that all of the approvals for the professional learning that has come to the curriculum office has been seen through, either through equity or high quality instruction, application of our 21st century skills, as well as a well-being, ensuring that we're creating that social emotional development and sense of belonging for all of our students. And we continue to work on that. In terms of just the hard numbers, we have 56 educators from every academic department who participated in some form of professional learning. And when we're looking at that 56, we're talking about these are our educators who have sent in a professional learning form, and they are looking to use some time to go off to a conference to look at some aspect of their own practice that they can bring back to the classroom.
And that's, I'm sorry, that's from July 1, 22 to July 1, 23. right?
Yes.
Okay.
So this number is very similar to our previous number. I think that we are less $1,000. Last year, I believe it was 18,000, and this year 17,000. Averaging roughly 2 professional learning sessions for these 56 educators who have decided to partake in a professional learning opportunity. Outside of our already building professional learning time or our district professional learning days. In looking specifically at the numbers, you can see the breakdown and the change from the 21-22 school year. And the one that I know that pops up for everyone is the literacy number. And at the bottom, there is some speculation around that and why there was such a big drop. And I do believe that that is due to the fact of the Right to Read Act and the science of reading and some of the grappling that our educators are doing with some of the changes and not knowing where we're going as we are waiting for the state to either approve our extension or to grant us mixing the word.
Waiver.
Thank you, Jan. As we're waiting for the waiver, which we still have not heard back on those 2 fronts. So that kind of impacted our professional learning inside of the world of literacy as we're waiting to see how do we move forward. But relatively across the board, we've seen a lot of gains in terms of like math or science continues to be an area where we're seeing growth inside of our educators opting into professional learning. Some of the challenges, and I spoke to it, the implications of professional learning for legislative curriculums. And some things we may not have captured here, like we hosted the Shoreline History Group that was looking at the Black and Latino and Puerto Rican studies course that has been mandated. So that wasn't one where our educators were actually going out, but they participated here in this boardroom. And there are other opportunities that we may not have been able to fully capture inside of our report, but we're looking to find other ways to capture that information. So we're providing the most thorough and accurate picture at the end of the year of all of these learning opportunities that our educators are actually partaking in. We continue to try to balance this idea because this is outside of our professional learning that's taking place on district days and the building days. So we are trying to balance this idea, but teachers going out for professional learning, this is a day where we're looking for substitutes inside of the classroom. So now we are having some brief gaps or interruption of our classroom teacher because they are attending professional learning. So it's a double-edged sword in that respect as well. Also, current models of professional learning have changed. So this is another piece that makes it challenging for us to capture the data because since COVID, as we all know, and as we see during this meeting, we had the option to be virtual. Now we're working outside of the school day. I don't necessarily have to put in for a sub. I don't have to put in for a professional learning day. I don't need to put in paperwork. However, I am attending a professional learning activity and a lot of professional groups have chosen to go this way for their professional learning. So this is other challenges that we're seeing, these different changes to the model, and we're most likely going to see this continue as we move forward. But there are a large number of successes. We see that the Equity Guiding Coalition continues to move forward inside of its work. They move forward inside of the work for the during our district professional learning times, as well as looking how we start to move into phase 2 of that. We also see the supporting of multilingual and emerging English speakers. How do we best support our ML population? And we've seen different professional learning opportunities with Dr. Marisa Ferraro, who has attended both our district PD days, but also provided professional learning for our SRBI team. We also see that supporting students with a variety of education needs continues to be part of that equity piece that we set our professional learning around. We still have ongoing coaching by our instructional leadership team. They continually and tirelessly look for ways that they can support our departments inside the classroom during their department meetings. Ongoing coaching to support our experiential learning. So we're having more job embedded sessions through coaching. And CPRO has worked with our district leadership team and our ILT team to work on these two components. One, since the start of the year has been around this idea of data sprints and how do we measure our success and measure the success of our strategic plan. And as we move into year 3, we're also looking to see how do we treat all of the learning as a strategy for improving and really meeting those goals that we set outside of our strategic plan. Finally, the implementation with DESA and the social emotional learning screener has been going well. We've seen fall, winter, and spring implementation of that assessment, continued collaboration to support the needs of the students identified through the DESA assessment. So not just assessing our students, but finding ways to actually support them inside of the classroom, as well as our SEL coordinator, Leah, working with our classroom teachers to have increased practices inside of their classroom spaces. We had conversations around how they're implementing things that are morning meetings, really trying to see the overlap of instruction in these practices. Forecasting for the future, looking at our next school year in 23-24 and those goals, what we're really moving forward with is trying to renew our focus on all 3 of the goals by seeing how goal 1 and goal 3 really meet goal 2 of high quality instruction. So we're trying to see how do we connect all of these inside of our classroom, in every classroom. Maintaining new learning that supports our strategic goals while collaborating within a professional learning community model. So how do we actually build this model when we are seeing more opportunities to learn together, to read together, to make changes that are positively impacting our strategic plan. And finally, continuing to map the district-wide professional learning to target shared goals across all the schools.
Great, thank you, great. Board members, do you have questions for the teacher?
or create first gen. So when teachers want to go to a workshop, do they have to get that, where they're going and it's, a sort of approval because that's an important area, say, at Goodwin School or at the middle school or the high school, or how does that, work? Because there's so many different workshops that are, people can take advantage of.
Of course. So one of the first things that they do is there is a district professional learning forum. And any teacher who's looking to attend any of those conferences has to gather that information. The first stop that that form makes is to their building principal. And the principal looks at the information, and if it's looks good and everything's there and it aligns to our strategic plan, our principals sign off on that. Then the teacher then sends it here to the curriculum office, in which I look over it as well and make sure that we have the budget or that they budgeted for this inside of the ILT. And then I sign off on it, and then it will go back to the teacher to now register for said professional learning.
When they come back from a workshop, do they have an opportunity to present, some of their learning if they think the district would benefit, from it?
Yeah, so right now, there's not more formalized structures for that. They've been happening more informally between teachers and students. Between teachers and colleagues. And we're looking for more ways to formalize that process inside of the department meetings with ILT members. That way, there's more of a building of that collective advocacy.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
So Dr. Fletcher, a number that stood out was average 2 per educator that they attended this year, and you explained some of the reasons why that may be with COVID and replacement and having teachers out and finding substitutes, et cetera. A number doesn't speak to the quality of professional development, certainly, but I think contractually they can go up to 6 professional development days. I think that I read that in the literature. So I'm curious, is there a target? I mean, you want 1 could be enough, right?
Yeah.
Certainly, but I'm just curious with 2 and they can go up to 6. What are your thoughts around that?
So I think it really deals with the alignment to our plan and the goals that those departments are making. We're trying to be super intentional this school year, at least leading into year 3, around how are we preparing to meet the needs of our students inside the classroom, and how are we preparing to perform or to deliver high quality instruction that meets the needs of all of our students.
So very targeted, what you're saying, so there may be less opportunities, but they may be richer in the number, even though smaller, but richer and more pointed towards the curriculum.
Absolutely, and building out the opportunities for teachers to share. And that's where that slide around the professional learning communities come in. If we're thinking about models that allow us to share that information, now we can have one person go out and bring that back to the group, and now we can grow together.
And this is above and beyond, obviously, the 6 days built into the contract for all educators. And actually, there's a lot of commitment. I know most board members already know this, but I'll say it again, just for general public. There's a lot of commitment to professional development in our district. We have our half-day PDs, we have our extended day PDs, and then we have 6 professional development days. There is a lot of time for the groups to have this kind of professional development, and then this is additional time for specific study. I would anticipate that we're gonna see an awful lot of time spent on reading next year, because we're gonna be in the throes of looking at that pilot, and eventually our teachers are gonna need a significant amount of professional development and time with that, this resource that gets chosen.
Any other questions?
Just a quick question. So on the number of workshops, statistics page, I was just wondering about the, I lost it. The world language, where it was a decrease by 9. I don't know if that's a significant number or not. It seems to compare to the other areas, subjects, it seems to be. Is that because of the not much of a change in curriculum, or what would indicate that change?
There hasn't been much of a change inside of the curriculum and offering that they were doing. At this point, I don't have a specific answer, but that's something I can look into more and speaking with our ILT member for world languages to really find out what accounts for that. But in terms of our curriculum, there hasn't been a massive.
Seems like it would be
It's
rather
been
steady.
steady
Yeah,
inside of world languages.
that's my sense.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. So Kathy, maybe you could answer this one more, Chris. So in this particular area, it's pretty much focused on academic subjects. But of their workshops that staff are attending on bilingual, multilingual, so that's a need that we know that we've been working on with students and families. And it's not reflected here, so I'd be curious to know.
We can speak to the multilingual because there was a big effort there, but in terms of special ed, yes.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this year, to our disappointment, every moment was spent on that new IEP system. So every PD day, every department day, was spent learning that.
Right.
But we still have every teacher having a PD on dyslexia. You know, that they all are Wilson trained, you know, so we keep making sure we're up to date with those things.
And this summer you have a dyslexia grant, is that right? At this
Well,
summer?
the state did have a
Extended.
dyslexia grant. It was for providing services to students, so we have some dyslexia camps. I don't know if we're fooling the kids, but yeah, it'll be a little more fun. Goodwin Middle School and St. John's. And then a couple of the students at the high school with that are getting some extra support. So that's not PD though, that's original.
Thank you.
And I think Crew was talking earlier about Maria, what's your last name?
Marisa, Dr. Marisa Ferraro from Southern
That's all.
Connecticut University. I think every district professional learning day, outside of convocation, she has provided some form of professional learning for our multilingual learners. So that has been something that has been at the forefront of what we've been trying to do. And I believe May 12th, we had a full day session with our SRBMA team. Because we're really trying to think about how are we providing supports and ongoing supports inside of Goodwin and inside of the high school and the middle school. So we were looking at our SRBI team as that first layer of support, including our ML support team. Those three members were also in attendance. And Dr. Ferraro held a full day session about how to think about language acquisition versus disability.
Thanks so much for that clarification. Thank you.
So, that question with the African American, Black, Puerto Rican, Latino curriculums, is that next year that they have to be implemented? When is that, that the schools have to?
No, that's already current.
It's currently.
Yeah, that currently has to be
So that was
implemented.
a professional development that staff went to.
So that was a professional learning community that is a shoreline community that we played host to a couple of weeks ago, I believe. And they all were in here discussing implementation of the curriculum challenges and the successes that they're having with the ways to advertise the course with kids, because it is an elective. So if students opt into it, it runs. If they don't, it doesn't. So we're trying to really see how do we spread the word of this course that students will choose to select it.
Great.
So
Good to hear.
We did implement a year earlier here.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Yeah, you were right.
And can you take it as a just for senior, or can you take
No.
it as a junior?
It's an elective for upperclassmen, right?
That's a junior senior.
junior, senior.
Thanks.
Thank you for being involved. Kelly.
Sorry, just one more question, you know, if I want to move on. When we look at holistically our programs, as Emily mentioned, method of development, but also it ties into like employee retention and satisfaction. Do we benchmark against anything? Like, I know it's hard to do a one-for-one, but do we have an idea on similar school districts, structures, what their development looks like? How much they're putting towards development in their budgets, how many workshops are being done. I know it's probably not an answer for tonight, but it would be something that would be
No,
interesting. to
honestly,
understand.
no. I mean, anecdotally, yes, Curry has his colleague group that he goes, people who do the work he does, that he goes to every month. I go to mine. And so we hear from them, but we don't have a tally of that sort of thing. It's something we could collect. I will say that we tend to have the higher end of number of days and hours of professional development in our contract. But no, that's as much as I know. And we used to do more things regionally, but when they did away with the regional calendar, that all kind of got blown out of the water.
Yeah. Just as a quick follow-up, I was wondering about that $17,000 figure. Is it adequate? I mean, are you finding that, I know you're getting grant money as well, but are you finding that there are potentially requests for additional types of PD that would be more helpful that you just need more funding for? I know you're new at the game
Yeah.
here, but
So at this point in time, there hasn't been a request that I've had to turn down due to lack of funding. So there has been opportunities for teachers who have found or needed additional professional learning in a particular area to send the request and it to be approved with alignment to our goals.
okay.
So the budget that exists was created by Andy, and so it's a budget that Korea inherited, so he really does need to see it for a year before he knows, but any no's up to this point have been about being outside of the strategic plan goals that we're working on. And so choosing not to put our resources there, or just not taking on too much. So there've been some requests, I think, for some summer work, and Korea is refocusing some of that work and looking to prioritize certain pieces of it, because you can only handle so much change at any one time. So we're trying to be.
And I know what that's to align to.
Yeah,
Goals.
yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah, but thank you for asking that question. And you know, there's a big chunk of money set aside for the reading pilot.
I
The
would know.
PD and the
We're
reading
waiting for
pilot.
that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's gonna be, you're gonna see a much bigger number up there next year.
Okay, actually, Steve, you get your hand up, Steve.
Quick question. How many requests were submitted that have been denied at the levels, at both the school level and also at the administration level or Curry's level? Do we track that at all?
No, I don't have a number, but it's minimal if any. During this time, during my tenure, I have not seen a request that has come in that I had to deny.
I would ask the principals, have any requests come to you that have not been forwarded on up?
At the high school level, all the requests have been in line with the strategic plans, so they were all approved at the high school level. Teachers do a pretty good job of knowing that it needs to be aligned because of the umbrella.
I would say exactly the same as Joe.
Yep, ditto at Goodwin.
I think that speaks volumes, because that says that teachers know our strategic plan and what it is that we want to spend money and resources and their time on.
Okay, final question.
Sure, it's just a comment. I think that's what you Korea was saying. For Jan, professional development has really taken such a huge leap. I mean, it used to be that you would go in your car and you would drive to wherever you're gonna go and you'd sit into a live workshop and do all those kind of things. And now there's opportunity for virtual, but then at the same time, these things are being archived. So that you have an opportunity for staff to be able to take advantage of it on their own to some extent, without missing a day, not that you don't want to be present, but sometimes you have a commitment for your kid, the children you're working with, and you're like, all right, I'm going to try to do this. But it's a very different world now for professional development.
And they're having the opportunity to watch it on the weekend because it is being archived.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. Great discussion. Our next item on the agenda is the chocolate house.
Yes, so we'll begin, and I would like to say that we have Ted Levy with us here online. Ted is an important member of the Old Saybrook Historical Society. And the Facilities Committee has heard this presentation before, but we want to bring it to the full board tonight. And we're coming to you with something that is really outside of that, something that we've never brought forward before. Ted came to us with a request to meet about this house that sits on Boston Post Road. It's actually at 1560 Boston Post Road. And it is a 1700s working man, journeyman's home, journeyman woman's home. And it is a small, I have pictures here, and please don't think, oh, good Lord, it is. No, I have pictures of the interior and the exterior. Please look past the cosmetic stuff. Both Karen and Alan came to visit the house with us Julie and me, and Ted, and the owner of the property, is privately owned. And Mark Carroll, right, from the middle school. What Ted's proposal was, in a nutshell, is that the home would be dismantled and then rebuilt on a Old Saybrook Public Schools property. And so we went to look at it, and what we saw was a home that cosmetically definitely needs some work. But structurally is in good shape. The home itself, if you look past it, you're gonna say she's crazy. How could she say that's in good shape? The back half of the house is a late addition. It's a 20th century addition, and that is not structurally sound. That will need to be taken apart. The actual box, if you think of the old box style home, is in good shape. There needs to be some roof work. There needs to be there's at least one of the beams. But the fireplace, the flooring, the door, the walls, any original glass is still there. There are also replacement windows that look like maybe a 1950s edition. All right, so we were intrigued. We went there and said, okay, kind of interesting. And what the proposal would mean is dismantling it, having a professional group of folks come and dismantle it. They would number every piece, including every stone in the fireplace. I actually have a quote for doing this work right here. And Julie, there's enough for you to have one.
I have it.
Oh, okay, great. And then putting it up at a site to be named, somewhere where it could be used as a education site or meeting site for the town and the school district, or both. But also it would allow us to keep a piece of history. What makes the place unique, and I'm gonna let Ted talk more about this, is there are very few of these left. All the homes that you see that are preserved tend to be the homes of the more affluent citizens of our time, like the Hart House, right? These were affluent, prestigious families. This particular home is not that. It's the house of the average citizen of Old Saybrook. And so we see some opportunities. Julie and I have had some dreams about how we could put it right out in front of this building with sort of a breezeway between the building and that. It would be easily maintained and kind of watched over there. Kids from the middle school, kids from Goodwin could come over. We've talked about putting it at Goodwin. I think the one place we couldn't put it is the high school because of all the fields. So why us? Why did Ted come to us? And I'll let him talk in a minute and sort of explain it. They did approach the town. The town doesn't feel like they have any place to put it. There isn't a private piece of land where it can go. There is cost associated with it, obviously. And the Historical Society does not have a piece of property for it, nor do they have the money to take it down and restore it. Of course, neither do we, but that's another story. Yeah. So we know we need funding. I've had more than one conversation with First Selectman Fortuna about potential funding. I told him I would be very hard pressed to explain to the citizens of Old Saybrook that I spent education money on a house that we're gonna have kids take some classes in. But, you know, if grant money can be found and if there's some money that could be supported, we could potentially make this happen. One of the board members sent some questions ahead of time, which I greatly appreciate, and I want to answer those first. Is there a proposed timeline around the project? I think that the owner of the property would like this taken down sooner rather than later. So the demolition piece, if that's what it's called, the demolition and then the storage would need to happen relatively soon, like months, not years. The actual putting it back up again and finding a place to do that and having it restored. Once it's in a trailer, it can be stored indefinitely because it would then be treated so that insects and things wouldn't get at the wood. So that it's sort of two timelines. And I spoke with Carl today, First Selectman Fortuna, about whether or not that could be stored on a piece of town property, this van with all this stuff, and it would be like, you know, the C van, the big. And he said yes, that he thought it could, which is great for us. The cost to restore it, you know, very loosely, like $100,000 was quoted, but the cost to take it down is about $42,000. You have that right in front of you here. So I think I've answered the questions that were sent ahead of time. Ted, would you please add anything that you think is essential that I've forgotten, and I'll ask the board members and Mrs. Pendleton to do the same.
And on mute.
Ted, I think you're on mute. We still can't hear you. Still can't hear you, Ted.
Looks like he's talking something.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So how did this even come about? Because it's interesting because I drive by it there, you know, every day. The other day I was just looking at it not even looking at this letter.
Yeah.
But how did that even come about? Like, oh, there's this building here.
He's holding up a note.
Oh, he's holding up a note. What is it?
Oh, okay.
So the answer
It
to your
says it's
question.
not a meeting forum.
It's not
Is he allowed
on.
to, is he allowed to participate? Fred?
Can you hear me now, as they say?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. As Superintendent Peruccio said, this is really an unusual opportunity for a town to obtain a historic artifact. Houses of this kind are not usually available and not usually preserved. So from a historic point of view, the Historical Society was interested in preserving this in some way. There's loads of educational opportunities that it offers, and limited only by your imagination, perhaps, but primarily it's an outstanding opportunity to teach Saybrook history, which is an important part of your curriculum, I know. The owners are willing to essentially give the building away if there's a good use for it, but they are interested in clearing that lot. So there is some time pressure to make a decision going forward. I guess if there's particular questions, I'd be happy to respond to those. I don't know quite where to go with this conversation.
Thanks, Ted. One of the questions that was asked while we were working on unmuting you was, you know, how did this come about that you approached us? And I know that you went to the town first, and but I really think it began with the owners saying, we'd rather not just tear this down. Is there something that you could do with it? And they approached you, right, Ted?
Yes, exactly right. They have an interest in the community. They have an interest in historic preservation. They know the Historical Society is always interested in this kind of thing. And so I was introduced to them actually last summer, and we discussed it and explored possibilities, several different possibilities. And then during the course of this sort of exploration period, the idea of its educational value came up. And then at that point, we approached the school administration and discussed it with them. And there does seem to be lots of opportunities here from an educational point of view. Many school systems take students off for a day for a typical lesson in an old schoolhouse, one-room schools that have been preserved. Here is a wonderful opportunity to conduct a variety of activities, educational activities in an ordinary working man's home, working woman's home too. It's really a unique and outstanding opportunity that it's a rare opportunity for a school system to take advantage of this.
I can see opportunities if this were to move forward. I could see opportunities for students to be involved in this project, you know, even the reconstruction phase and understanding what's going on, understanding the science behind dating it, dating the wood in the house, and the construction style to kind of understand everything that we can about the house itself. And then once erected on the site, could become a meeting place And I keep sweetening the pot with town saying even town people could have meetings there. So there is a grant, and the Historical Society through TED has is willing to take a role in applying for those grants. Most of them are looking for some sort of in-kind, so we might need to do our own fundraising when we're looking at restoring this piece, where I think that the bulk of the cost will come in. So as Ted said, tight window of time to get it down and off the property, whatever amount of time to put it back up again.
I know we talked a little bit about this in facilities and we don't have the answers at this point, but so we would have a cost to take down, then restore racks, but then ongoing maintenance of the building once it's on school property. Do we have any more information about, is that a shared responsibility with the town? If there's going to be town use, are there opportunities for grants on the maintenance? Do you have any idea of what that might look like?
And do you have an answer to the grants question for maintenance?
Do I? You're directing that question to me?
Yes, so the question was, once the building is put back up again, do you know of any maintenance grants to keep it in good condition?
There, grant, not offhand.
Okay.
However, there's an organization, this statewide organization called Preservation Connecticut that does provide grants for maintenance of historic buildings. Their primary interest is in church buildings, but there may be opportunities to explore with them for funding for supporting a structure and a use of a building like this. So that would be Preservation Connecticut. Another organization, statewide group, would be this State Historic Preservation Office, which is funded by state funds. And I've begun a discussion with them. We have not found anything yet, but they're a little bit more flexible, and in recent years have had a little more money than some of the other organizations. So that too would be a definite possibility.
I don't know if Karen and Alan want to add anything because they went to see it before. I see Steve has his hand up, but.
Steve, you want to comment, Steve?
Yeah, I have concerns, but I have a couple questions. I mean, to begin, I'm not quite sure I see how this aligns with our strategic goals. And then more importantly, I'm really concerned with how is this fiscally responsible? I understand, 42,000 is our bid to dismantle it, and somebody threw out $100,000 and put it back together. That can't be including any code upgrades, which are going to be required if you're going to make it an educational facility. I just don't see how it ties into, it's a great building. It's a shame to see it go. It's in really poor shape. But I don't see how it's the Board of Education's responsibility to save this building.
Do you have a question? Do you want me to just comment on that?
Yeah, well,
or?
no, I mean, I'll start with, how does this align with our strategic goals?
So it would support our emphasis on local history, which is part of our high quality and also part of our mission. And our mission is about, acting locally and globally, becoming citizens of the community. Really, the eye candy for me was the support of our local history program, which has really taken on a life of its own and connected our school students with the community more than we have, at least in the last 10 years. I can't speak before that.
And so how is this fiscally responsible?
Well, I don't think we can pull the money to take it down from the operating budget. I would be looking for the board to give us permission to seek grant money and to continue to communicate with the town to see if there is any money there that could be tapped into.
But the town did express its disinterest in the building already, correct?
Yes, they don't want to be keepers of the building. They don't feel they have a place for it. And I didn't speak to them specifically about that component. That might be something Ted needs to speak to, but I know that they were approached. But in speaking with the first selectman today, he's not disinterested in saving it. He's just disinterested in having it on a piece of town property and having to probably maintain it.
And even if we put it on a Board of Ed property, isn't the Board of Ed get their money from the town, from the townspeople? I mean, it's still town, whether we call it Board of Ed or we call it the towns, it's still from the taxpayers that are paying for it. I just,
Right,
again,
that's true.
I would say I don't see how this is a good use of funds from the Board of Ed standpoint.
Okay,
That's my
yep,
opinion.
I hear you.
Well, I was just wondering if you mentioned that you spoke with the first selectman several times. Did funding come into that conversation? Did he indicate that he felt the town would be able to support this in any way financially?
I think he was careful not to get too far ahead and not to speak for the Board of Finance or the rest of the selectmen. But he didn't say no either. He said, you know, there might be some money, depends on what we're talking about and the total price. Yeah.
So what we're talking about tonight is, would the board support having Mr. Levy look into grants, right? But the timeline to take this house down and then the monthly fee of approximately $180 would commence at what point? You know, we don't know the timeline. I don't know. You don't know the answer.
Not specifically, but I would say we're talking, as I said, we're talking months, not years.
Yeah, because we've got to go through the state and the grants. I have just a quick question for Mr. Levy. Ted, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So, since we last talked as a group, have you looked into any more or researched that this kind of thing's been done in the past? Is there money available? There's grants. I mean, can you tell us a little more about the grant process?
Well, I wish I had a good definite answer for you that said the money is here and we just have to ask for it. This is an unusual opportunity, one that towns or school systems just typically do not face. There are two primary sources for historic preservation funds in this state. One is Preservation Connecticut, and the other is the State Historic Preservation Office. They both provide grants to various institutions and for various causes for school systems to purchase or recreate an old house is not on their list of typical funding opportunities for people who seek funds from them. So what it will require is further discussions with them to see if they will provide funds for this kind of a unique opportunity. There are probably, I should be a little more careful here. There must be other organizations as well that provide funds for historic preservation and educational matters such as this. But the two primary sources would be those two that I mentioned, Preservation Connecticut and the State Historic Preservation Office.
Thank you.
I've begun to talk with both of them and have received encouragement, but no, it's new for them too, and so they're exploring.
Right.
So I am interested in hearing from Alan and Karen, who did see it. And my question related to the grants. So how long do those discussions typically take? Right, given that a decision has to be made in the near term.
Well, I mean, certainly my impression of that, you saw the photos. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's intriguing. I mean, it's first of all, very fascinating to me that this structure dates back to the early 1700s and it's a tradesman's house. Because typically, as Jan said, I'm looking at wealthy sea captains, large, beautiful homes, so this, I think there are very few homes like this. And the fact that it is a piece of sacred history, I'd hate to see it demolished. I agree, the funding is the big question. And Ted, I think we need to sort of move on the grant process to see if this is a viable option, because this, we can't take it out of our school budget and the town doesn't seem to be jumping on this opportunity. I don't want to see this opportunity lost, but we need to see if we can move this process along any quicker in terms of grant money. So
again, I would hate to see this as a lost opportunity. I think it's a wonderful educational opportunity for our students and students from outside of our district, quite frankly. I mean, I was fascinated when we walked through the house. Just feel the history was amazing. I think it would be an opportunity lost, but I understand the questions about funding.
And it's the timeline that we're unclear of with the
Pressure.
grant process and working with the state and, the worst case scenario is that it gets put in a storage unit at $180 a month and the grant money doesn't come through and then what?
Yeah, stuck with
That'd be an
that.
awful situation to be in for sure.
Yeah,
I am curious, because most of the time, and I don't know who can answer this question, but usually if you have a historic house, you have to get all kinds of permissions to make any sort of changes to it. And why is it that this house can just be demolished, whereas like other homes, historic homes in the town need certain zoning regulations?
But it's not- maybe it hasn't
I don't
been.
think it ever
So
got
it's put in
historic.
as historic.
It didn't get
Right,
recognized.
it doesn't have
It
historic.
Ted, can you speak to that? It is, so the question that board member Julia's had is there nothing protecting this home? You know, is there, it can be torn down indiscriminately because it doesn't have a certain status? Why is that?
Historic organizations typically try to preserve older homes by having what are known as demolition delay ordinances, which require anybody who's going to demolish their building to wait a certain period of time, usually around 6 months. Saybrook does not have that kind of ordinance. Saybrook has lost a number of historic homes over the past years. Across the street from this particular place, it was a house that's now just an open piece of land owned by Ron Lyman, which was the Harvey House, which went back into the early 1800s. There's the Poinkowski property across from the car dealerships on Middlesex Turnpike. You could see it falling and collapsing every day up there high on the hill. There's a house on Springbrook Road that was on the National Register of Historic Places that was demolished without a word last year. Saybrook has lost a number of its historic treasures. There's nothing to stop anybody from demolishing their home, whether it's a new one or an old one or anything else. So this one has no protections. Nobody is going to bat to save it or any other places. There's a lot of commercial pressure to develop the land, get the houses off the land, and put more shopping areas in. So this is a last shot, an opportunity to save a building and put it to some educational use.
Thank you.
So it seems that, for lack of a better phrase, the ball's in your court, Mr. Levy, in terms of researching and finding out. I hate to put it that way, but I mean, I think our hands are tied as a board to make a decision until we have some more information. And I don't know how we could assist you. Can we assist you in any way?
Well, I'd like to get myself out of this equation because
okay.
I really don't belong there in the middle of this. I'm a bearer of information and what I saw as a great opportunity for the school system. So I'd be happy to do what I can do. I'd be happy to work with the board and seek funds, but I think you might have a decision to make on whether it's going to be worthwhile or not. I'll seek, but I might come up empty-handed. And if you have people on your staff who are knowledgeable and skilled in this field, they too should perhaps take a look and see what's available out there.
Yeah, we simply don't have that person on staff. We don't have grant writers. We don't have paid grant seekers. Just not something that we are large enough to be able to do.
Right. So if I can share my interpretation of what I'm hearing, okay, Levy, go out and get the funds and we'll do it. go out and come back empty-handed, and we have to move on to other issues.
I think that since the money is the showstopper right now, at least for the demolition piece, you know, sort of putting off what the next step might be. I think that without knowing the answer to that, we would be hard pressed to move forward. I think that's, I'm speaking for everyone when I say that. And that breaks my heart, because I do really like the idea of maintaining this building, keeping it for our kids and for the community. But there are no funds here. We would have to go and seek them all. And we don't have that type of training or talent or even time to do that work. And it would be on top of our other job.
Sure.
Just a suggestion here, but outside of the grants, right, as possibilities, like, I live in town, I wouldn't have known about this if it wasn't for this discussion here.
Right.
I don't know if there's any like publicity that's been done in town, like there may be a bunch of people that might be willing to kind of like crowdsource at least the,
Created lights.
Yeah, I said Scott Gabriel needs to get on this one.
So, I mean, just as another opportunity, I'd like to see it go too. I mean, obviously, we have to be fiscally prudent here, and the Board of Ed doesn't have a boatload of money just to throw at this. But like I said, everyone that I've talked to, even remotely in town about this, had no idea that this was even on the right, and when you tell them they're interested, so.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to have a, you know, a collab, like, so clearly from what I heard you describe, we have the land, the town and the Historical Society doesn't.
Right.
So could there be a three-way collaboration where we share some of the cost, crowd fund much of the cost, and, you know, and hopefully Ted can come up with some funding sources, whether they're, you know, whether they exist or not. And see if there's, you know, I mean, I agree. I don't think that the board should bear the sole responsibility for the cost of this. But if we can have a collaborative community effort that comes together, because then I think Old Saybrook would rally around that. And then the public school system would be a benefit of it. Everybody would really benefit from it.
$50,000.
Yeah.
We've done fundraisers that have raised $50,000 in a night.
It can be done. It's a lot of heavy lifting on top of, I guess what I'm saying is, I have the passion for this and I'm happy to be part of it. I'm not sure that I can lead this.
The owner's gonna demolish the building anyway, right?
Yeah.
And that's gonna cost some money, and the owner's interested in like saving the building. Do you think we could collaborate with the owner to see if they'd be interested in making, I mean, I assume it's like a contractor, they probably own land in the building on it. You think the owner would be interested in contributing at least a partial sum of that, what is it, $42,000?
I don't know, good question. It's a good question. Good thought.
I've wondered, and I didn't want to come out and ask the owner directly, but I wondered if they see value in selling it in parts, like we're talking about old boards on the floors that are just, you know, historically, people are now making tables and things out of those. So I wonder if they're hoping that if we don't take it, they'll actually make money on it. But these are asks. I mean, I even thought about, would students be interested in running a fundraiser for it, you know? You know, the problem is that we are on this tight timeline. You know, we can coordinate and organize lots of different people and groups and probably raise the money in short order. But the coordination piece is a lot of effort over a short period of time, and I'm happy to be part of it. Julie's happy to be part of it. We just don't have the time to.
What's the deadline?
So interestingly, when we asked, when do you need an answer from us? We were told June. Oh my God. That's clearly not gonna happen. But I don't know, Ted, if there's any wiggle room on that. Looking for an answer in June, or if they've got the bulldozers ready to go in July.
I think that's up to the owners. They have said on more than one occasion that they would like to have the lot cleared by June. I think if they were, there was a serious possibility of preserving the place, I think they would be open to considering that, because they do seem like very reasonable people. I can't speak for them, but they're very generous-hearted people.
Yeah, just clearly, just the fact that they allowed us to go there and open the house for us and, you know, they didn't need to do that. If there's nothing protecting the house, they could have just driven the bulldozer through it and started over. So, yeah, so there might be some opportunity to do that. So what we'd like, I think what the facilities committee is asking for is an opportunity to do a little bit more research, a little bit more fact finding. And know that the board is, given that there are all these other things that are still questions, money, where to store it, and when we know where to store it, money, where would it go? Where would the money come from to put it back together again? Who would maintain it? Do we continue to pursue it, or does the board feel that there's just too much liability, too much unknown, and too little time to get the answers?
Yeah, so Ted, thanks for bringing this to the board. I guess my question is, knowing that school systems apply for grants, it doesn't mean that it's gonna happen every year, you're gonna get the money to keep it up. So that's something else to probably think about, you know, I mean, there are lots of things to entertain, but a grant is a grant, but it doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, I don't know anything about construction, but what you need to really maintain something, where's that gonna come from?
So all I can say from facilities is that this is a 15 by 40, this is not much bigger than a shed in most people's yards, quite honestly. It's 15 by 43. I don't think it wouldn't have, you know, water. It wouldn't need sewer. It needs some electricity, obviously. So we're not talking about lots of utilities or things to, you know, necessarily maintain. So it's when it's dismantled, we already know that it needs a new roof, so it's going to be fairly sound once it's reconstructed. And it's a matter of, you know, some paint every so many years on the outside. You know, it's not huge. I'm not saying it's not going to cost anything, because it will obviously cost something, but I don't think it's going to be huge dollars to maintain. That's just my gut based on what I saw.
It's really just a box. It really is just a rectangle.
It is, it's small, it's, you know.
So back to Kelly's comment and Karina's, in terms of, how do we get a committee going? I mean, if there's not a dollar commitment like there was for the lights from the town and the school, I mean, can there be a committee formed even in the town in the area?
We could ask the first selectman to do what we did with the original lights committee, which is a joint committee of board members and town officials appointed by the first selectman to continue to examine this and consider how funds could be raised, et cetera.
I think we need some good press on this, and I think if we could get, who's our local Harbor News reporter? I can't think of. We get somebody, we get some photos, we get you interviewed, we get the dilemma we're facing, we get the potential.
Sure, if the board is okay with me doing that.
So
that's not something I would have been comfortable doing.
No,
without
I understand, but I'm saying we have to get the publicity out there. We have to get the word out, as Sabrina said, that nobody knows, and Kelly said, nobody knows about this.
But if we get the publicity out there, you have to have what's next, a committee, or, you know, so we have to have some kind of structure.
It goes hand in hand. A committee without the knowledge is not, it has to work together. Exactly. So.
I honestly think-
I mean,
It's
Is it realistic?
I think that's, sorry, I'm
Go ahead.
looking at the turn, I wasn't caught on. Thank you, Trevor. I think that's probably the most logical start, right? Like, if this is going to move forward, it's going to have to move on multiple ends with multiple stakeholders together. Historical Society, the town, us for property, so joint commission in my mind is probably the only next viable start to at least even evaluate and understand.
Who's chairing the committee? So what I'm hearing is that joint committee.
Yeah.
Who's chairing? I mean, which we need to vote on tonight.
Ted is chairing it.
To move forward.
Right, Ted is sharing
You would
it.
have to, your vote tonight would be that you would support a joint committee, that you would go to the selectmen to ask that one be formed to look into the feasibility of this.
Knowing the timeline.
To Karen's point, start with some publicity around it. This is what we're.
Gotta get the interest going.
So I propose that we create a small committee here. This evening, the purpose we're talking about. Because we don't know enough facts tonight to even make a decision.
And pursue, the town to also perhaps, appoint members to that committee? Is that what we're thinking?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
If there's interest.
Some language that makes sense. Earlier. Yeah, Trevor's. I'm gonna try this typing it down. And it's like that.
Oh, Trent,
I'm wondering if Mr. Levy heard that, our proposal, or we're gonna make a proposal. What we said would be several stakeholders, and we would want historical society to be involved. We have a commitment from the historical society in that end.
do we?
So that's a, Mr. Levy, that's a question. I don't know if you heard all the discussion, but we're thinking of going to the town and having representation from a whole bunch of different stakeholders, historical society board, town folks, to start an exploratory committee, if you will, to look into this. And at the same time, put something in the Harbor News that would, inform people about the plight of this home and what potential there is. Would you be on board with that?
Certainly. I think for this to make any, I'd certainly be willing to go, and I'm sure members of the board or the administration would be willing to discuss it further with the first selectman. I think it makes lots of sense to go where the money is, and I think he has it. Forming a committee, I think a decision needs to be made about whether the school board be interested in having this if funds were raised to move the building onto school property. The owners need some assurance that it'll be put to good use, or they can just get rid of it. You can't keep them hanging for a long period of time. They've waited for quite some time already. But I think the first selectman could make a decision pretty quickly about whether that is something he would like to buy into. And I think I could speak for most of the historical society that we certainly would join in this kind of an effort. Having publicity for the purpose of raising funds or finding funds makes sense. Somebody's going to have to pay for it if the school board doesn't have the funds and the town doesn't have the funds, then it's up to the citizens of the community to decide whether they want to go forward or not. So short answer is sure, I'm all for it.
Okay, I think Trent, we give a motion prepared.
Yeah, I wrote a little motion here. Move to create a joint ad hoc committee between the Old Saybrook Board of Education and the town of Old Saybrook for the purpose of researching all aspects of preserving the Chalker House.
I could just
Including
amend that.
historical.
Move, you said move to form. I think we support the creation, the board supports the creation of, and will approach the town to create. Because I don't think we can speak for them.
No, I was just gonna offer a potential amendment to the motion. I would say maybe have the motion say where the board is appointing a member representative to approach the town on its behalf for the purposes of discussing a joint commission creation on this topic.
You got it. Thank you.
So move to support the creation of a joint ad hoc committee with at least one Board of Education representative will approach the town of Old Saybrook for the purpose of researching all aspects of preserving the Chalker House. Yeah, that's really pushed it. It's not.
No,
No,
no.
I would agree, Brent. I would say, motion is to, for the board to appoint a member of the Board of Education to approach the town Historical Society, I guess, on the board's behalf for the purposes of discussing the creation of a joint committee on the topic of the Chalker House.
Yeah, it's about the creation, the potential creation of a committee and approaching the town.
Right.
So I think I would amend for that is a member or members.
Remember, remember.
Yes.
Do we need names tonight?
No, we're not reversing your name. So.
In the meantime.
How about this?
At the end of the story, right? Counting on 20 at the end of the story.
Move to appoint a member or members of the Board of Education to approach the town of Old Saybrook regarding the creation of a joint ad hoc committee for the purpose of researching all aspects of preserving the Chalker House. Third time's a charm.
Okay, we have a motion.
To do that.
Kelly first and the second. Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions related to that. Do we at some point need to agree as a board that that should this move forward and be successful, that we would put it on our property, or do we not need to worry about?
Because you have to do one step at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then, I mean, I like what Ted said about, well, you know, if we agree to put it on a property and they have money. You know, well, anyway, I'm not gonna. Yeah.
It's gonna be one step at a time, because we may go to the town and they might say, no, thank you, we don't want to form that
That's
committee.
right.
And
Good.
just
You're
pay
like,
for
we're
that.
Yeah.
Or
okay,
they might
good.
say yes, and then we've got to figure out what research gets done and go back again.
Good, okay.
Okay, so we have a motion. All those in favor of the motion?
Wait, I'm sorry, I don't see all hands. Okay, so-
3, 4, 5.
Yeah, put my hand up. I think Jim knows, right?
All those opposed?
Nay.
And Steve.
2.
2. That's everybody.
Any abstentions? Is that right?
It's not everybody.
It's 5 and 2.
George is.
not here.
That's only 7. There should be 8 votes.
So we had 2 no's,
2 no's
and
I
1,
heard
2,
5 yes.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, 6.
So moved. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
John, thank you.
Bye, John, thank you.
Thank you.
See you at graduation. Sorry, Ted, one minute, we're saying goodbye to a few folks.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Take a tree on your way, John. Take a tree on your way.
Night.
Yeah, that's totally great.
Ted, did you want to say anything?
No, except thank you for the decision that you made. A lot of discussion sometimes hammers out the best possible approach, and maybe that's it. I look forward to hearing or finding out who on the board will be doing this, or who I can talk further with about this. So I look forward to that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Okay, moving on. 2023-24 tuition, Jan and Julie.
I'm gonna actually turn it over to Mrs. Pendleton. I'm going to step out for a moment. Really?
So hopefully this is a little easier than some of the other discussions. You see this every year. This is the calculation for tuition for any student who may, from time to time, we do have someone from another district that ends up approaching the board and asking, you know, to come here. And so we set a tuition based on that potential happening, and we use the formula that the state has established. We follow the same calculation. It takes out, it's the regular program expenditures, so it takes out things like special education costs and transportation, which are things outside of the cost of educating. And so we're looking at basically $1,000 increase in the cost of that tuition. That's the first part. You want to take them separate or together? What's separate? Okay.
The motion. I'd like to make a
Go ahead,
motion,
Karen.
I'd like to make a motion to move to approve the proposed regular tuition rate for the 2023-2024 academic year as presented.
Good, second. Just question.
Yeah, so Julie, in the course over time, how many students have actually, non-special ed students have come into Old Saybrook Public Schools just because they want to be here, not just, but because they want to be part of our school system?
So it's for various reasons, Eileen, and we've had one or two in any given year. And sometimes it's just
Is it work-placed or is it?
not really. It's typical, I'm looking at Kathy, it's typically a student that perhaps needs to be in another district for a variety of reasons, and they approach us, and it might be another school system working with us to say, we think you can offer this student perhaps what they need and address. You know,
It's not special ed.
This is not special ed. This is
Okay, I'm just trying
regular,
to kind of
right,
separate that.
right. Might not be right,
But we don't have any students who have elected to come here. Right.
not currently,
Right,
not currently. And that's for regular ed. Then we have a special ed tuition, which you're doing them separately, so we'll.
Okay. So there's questions, I'm gonna call for a vote to approve the proposed regular tuition rate for the 2023-24 academic year as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Yeah.
So moved.
So the next part of that is, we've decided, several years back that when we do have a tuition-based student who has special needs, the tuition rate that we have, put together includes related services, so perhaps speech or, you know, some guidance, psychology, you know, different pieces to that. It does, OTPT, thank you, right? It doesn't include if they had to have a para, for instance, we would, that would be an additional cost, but this is for the basic educational needs in their IEP as, you know, for supporting services and that sort of thing. So that's, an all-inclusive tuition. And it's, from 54,000 to 54,800 for next year. Again, based on that same calculation.
So within that document, I'm just thinking that the parents are responsible for bringing their children to the school.
Typically, again, that comes from another district to us. So not typically a parent paying for that tuition, but another district, because we have a program.
I meant transportation.
Depends. The district might provide transportation and pay for that separately for a student to come here.
The transportation will not be provided for any other
Not,
district.
not for us, not by us. So it doesn't include transportation by us, and the cost for that would be outside of this tuition cost.
So the bigger sense is to some extent, and maybe Kathy would know this. So if in-house, we can provide this program, it would be less money than going out of district, because out of district.
For that.
Correct, out of district, you'd have to be paying for transportation, it would probably be like double.
And it's also.
I'm just putting that out there.
It's also a less restrictive environment, right? It's a public.
Which is, yeah, most important.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed special education tuition rate for the 2023-2024 academic year as presented.
Okay.
Second by Kelly. Any further questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to authorize the superintendent to add sections of faculty.
each year at our last board meeting of the year, the board has granted the superintendent permission to add sections or staff as needed to accommodate enrollment. And so I'm asking for that this evening.
It's an easy one.
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Eileen and Karina.
All those in favor? All those opposed? So moved.
Is this our last meeting?
Yes, it is.
So then that would come at a different.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the superintendent.
You said at the last board meeting that would come to the board.
No, it just came to that.
No, I understand, but when you want to add something. would come in the
Instead of-
fall.
This allows.
Instead of-
I understand.
I just do it over the summer.
Okay, perfect.
The next item is the superintendent vacation rollover.
So each year, administrators send their requests to rollover dates to me and I send mine to you. And so I'm asking for up to 10, what I use, 10, 16. No, my contract. So it's, I think it's 16 days, although I don't think I'll be carrying over 16. I think between now and the end of June, I will be taking additional days. And this is how we ended up wording it last year because I didn't know what I would get for days during the month of June.
Sharon?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, move to approve the superintendent's vacation rollover request as presented.
Second by Ellen. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved. Okay, we have the Goodwin residency request. Jan Goodwin.
Okay.
We missed something.
We did.
We missed the staffing
Staffing.
discussion.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Then this is quick. This is quick and it does not, it does not require a motion. So this is simple. I just want to make you aware of where we are right now in staffing. Kind of goes hand in hand with the request to add sections. And this is certified staff in particular. So as you know, we have, including Kathy Bly, we have 5 retirements this year. Steve Woods, Maureen Healy, Danielle King, and Chris Kelly. We have either during the year or now here at the end of the year have 4 resignations. And we have already hired Sarah Smalley. We have hired a counselor for the high school to replace Maureen Healy, that's Chris Paris. And we are not replacing a couple of these positions. Special ed at the high school is going to be filled from inside. And there was a position where someone resigned earlier this year to take an administrative position. And we are not replacing that position at the middle school. So a little bit of reduction there. We do have some people moving around inside the district. As I said, we have some special ed folks going from Goodwin to the high school. And we have a teacher going from Goodwin to the middle school. So that's not unusual, that sort of shuffling within the buildings to move with certain students. But I wanted to make you aware that we continue to hire. We're in the process of interviewing speech and language folks now. Sarah Smalley and Kathy Bai have been involved in that. And I know that for the other positions that we are aware of are posted. I do anticipate over the summer, we could get additional resignations and retirements. There are people who will wait until the retirement events are over before they announce their retirement. So that could happen and we will be ready to move forward there. That's it. Just wanted you to know.
Steve, you have a question?
Just wondering on the resignations, are there exit interviews done?
Yes,
And do they give reasons as to why they're resigning?
yes, they do. Yep, yep. And those exit interviews are conducted by the supervisor and then turned in to me for review. So only one has been done so far, and that's the one who took an administrative position. I expect that one of them we're going to hear that we can only offer her part-time work and she was looking for full-time work or more hours. And I don't know what the other 2, what we'll learn there.
I think you have a question.
Question, and just clarification, Jan, we have a district-wide social worker.
We have a social worker in each building,
Okay, and psychologist,
in each building.
fabulous thing.
Yep.
Moving on, Goodwin residency request.
Yes, so we're actually putting two in front of each night. The first one is a fourth grade student who is in good standing. She and her family have moved out of town and have requested permission to finish the academic year here with us. And this is something I completely support, so does the building administrator.
Need further vote?
Move to approve it. Yeah, Kathleen, we move to approve the school residency request as presented by Brina.
Okay. And second, Alan, any questions or discussion? Yep.
When you say this year, Jan, you mean?
Through the
this
end
com-
of
Another week.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have to officially bring it to you. I told them they could continue between the time they wrote me this email and now. Just so the parent wouldn't feel like they had to hide something and that I would bring it to the board as we always do.
All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? So moved. Okay, next item is the Old Saybrook High School residency request.
Yep, this is a sophomore, also in good standing, supported by the building administration through the end of the year, moved out of town. Parents had done the right thing and asked for the ability to allow her child to come here so he could finish his sophomore year.
Okay, move to approve the Old Saybrook High School residency request as presented.
Second.
Second by Kelly. Questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved. Okay, reports by administration. Board members, do you have any questions for Heston at the Kathleen Goodwin School Office report? Alan?
Just a comment, Heston, it was a great video, great artwork and great narration by the students to celebrate Goodwin and certainly the Sabre community. So well done.
Thank you. It's a result of our strategic plan and partnering with Trent Gerbers, who really is fantastic. And yeah, really appreciate that work that Trent did with us. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Thanks for holding such a great art show and concert the other evening.
That was fun.
Heston?
Thank you for coming.
Yep, and the parents were really very enthused to see their kids. This was Curry there too with his son, and everybody was really very engaged. And the artwork was spectacular.
If you missed that one, there's another art show tomorrow night, right? Thursday night, right?
That's
Right,
right,
Ashley?
5:30.
Thank you.
Okay, Old Saybrook Middle School, do you have any questions off Dr. Bachman's report?
No question, just the Main Street math this morning was absolutely amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
What was it?
Main Street math, so each of the fifth graders had to create a business and they had math problems that was solved into it. They had to come up with a business proposal, explain why their business was eco-friendly, a number of different things, slogans, write a pitch for their business. And then all of the parents and different community members were invited in and the kids stood by their trifolds of their business and had to answer questions.
Shark Tank mix.
Yeah, it was great.
Shark Tank.
It was very good. And I asked many kids if they liked math and some said yes, some said, but all of them said they liked this kind of math.
Very nice.
We're very thankful for so many of our local community businesses that spoke with our students and invited them in to find out about how math is used in the business community. So we really appreciate the community that we have.
Right. Moving on, Old Saybrook High School. Joe. Alan, any questions?
Oh, sorry.
Any questions for Joe?
I have a question for the witness student.
High school?
No, from middle school. That's okay. I just wanted to mention, although our student rep mentioned about the witness stones, I know that it's something that I learned was happening all across the state of Connecticut. History teachers were taking this initiative in various high schools. So it's something that Old Saybrook participated in, but it is something that was happening statewide this month. So it's of interest to other school systems as well.
Just want to thank Joe for, his report, and I always like pictures, so when we can't be there, Joe, it's always nice to see pictures. So thank you for including pictures of the groups that participated in different things.
Sure, I learned at a young age to include pictures.
Okay. Moving on, curriculum, instruction and assessment. Any questions for Dr. Fletcher? Report. Operations, facilities and finance. Any questions for Julie? Report.
Want to say one thing.
Go ahead.
We are reliving the Eversource nightmare.
Don't even.
Oh.
And so I just bring that to your attention that we are trying everything possible to get Eversource to approve a piece of equipment that is essential to the project at Goodwin, and I am not hopeful. That's a saying. Well, we have a couple rabbits up our sleeves, so we're gonna keep going, but I just put that out there.
If you get a chance to speak to any of your legislators, particularly those that are on the utilities committee up in Hartford, I know Norm Nadelman is, please mention to them that Eversource is not being supported. And we really could use their help in getting our air conditioning project moved forward. We're tied into grant money. We have a timeline, we have things lined up, and this could hold up everything.
And it's really multifaceted because it's supply chain issues, the approved vendors, the people that Eversource will work with, let's just say, don't have the products. So it's this, it's frustrating. I mean, Alan, from the light project that we had to buy a meter box, which should be a simple thing off of eBay to complete that project.
He got creative and it worked.
Yeah, this is a much more sophisticated piece of equipment that I do understand has security and safety components to it that are very important, but Eversource only works with certain vendors, and they've taken vendors off their list that they won't allow to build equipment. And so the market is so small and the demand is so great that we're just battling. So I just put that out there.
Great.
If it would be helpful, I mean, the committee could send an email to Norm, Mr. Nadelman, and let him know the play. I don't know the.
Yeah, I know.
But if we put something together, we could certainly send
Yeah, we
something
need
along in support.
It may work. I just,
Can't hurt.
it's got a lot of, it's multifaceted. It's not just.
But to Alan's point, Julie, sometimes the facts and the politics can meet somewhere.
Yes, well, that's true.
So I know that, anybody who has connections, it's maybe Julie, if you could just write up a little blurb of what the problem is and what we're proposing as a resolution. And because, we've kind of made a soft promise to people that we would get the air conditioning up and going, and to think that Eversource might hold it up. Well, not just Eversource and the supply chain problems combined,
And
would
they're-
really be tough to hear, I think, for the staff members and the kids.
They recognize it. I mean, I don't want to say too loudly, but there are other sources of power that we could look into for the fall to get us over the hump if we have to. Alternate power, not electricity. And that's something we're looking at right now as well, just to have a backup plan, because we don't know that we're going to be able to get, even with all the help. If the product isn't available and it isn't out there, and it takes, 40 weeks or 50 weeks to produce.
Not gonna happen.
That's where we are. It's one piece of equipment. One piece.
Right. On it.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted you to know, everybody.
Student services. Kathy.
Say I'm not gonna.
Right, let's get happy.
Yeah, fire me.
The student services, for report.
The only thing that I would like to point out, if I could, please, I know where to read it, is the DESA data overview. I think Leah is still on, yes, a little corner piece there. If you didn't get an opportunity to click on and open up that data, I think you'll see a lot of really good information about what I see as very promising news about the change in our students post-COVID, going in a really positive direction. Leah, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Sure. I think when we first started the DESA, there was some, growing pains with it. Of course, it was a brand new system. It was something technological that teachers had to learn. There was training involved. There is a concept of social emotional learning and the concepts or the competencies rather embedded in that. And I think that was within our first year of growth. But speaking to what Jan just mentioned and the data itself, our report card, so to speak, is, was an A plus really to begin with. When we look at national norms for this data, 15% of students across Connecticut and otherwise typically fall in a need category. And we continue after 2 years to hover right around 5% in need. And I will just say that the teams at each school, looking at these students, both the leadership teams, the support staff, and then down to the classroom teachers, are invested in supporting these students. And as we've seen new programs come in effect, just little changes in the school, but, for example, responsive classroom at Goodwin, it gives us vehicles and ways to access social emotional learning that, starts a student's day with a morning meeting, and the language is becoming consistent. So I think the data gives one story, and it's a positive story. And I wanted to lastly say that every time we met and looked at student names who had come up across these 5 screeners or checked on these students, it was a rare occurrence, maybe 2 or 3 names across these 2 years where an eyebrow was raised and it was like, oh, how did he or she come up here? Because everyone in that room knew those children, knew what they may or may not need at that time. And that was really wonderful to see. That shows a community in each school who everyone at the table is invested in that child. So I was pleased with the results. It's been an interesting process. And I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
And if I could just add, I was very impressed with the improvement in the student self-regulation and self-management piece, which was something we were hearing across the state during COVID and just post-COVID was a significant problem in classrooms and schools. And we saw a huge jump in that number. I know that took a lot of work. I'm not familiar yet with Goodwin's final discipline numbers or the high school's final discipline numbers, but I had an occasion to look at the middle school discipline numbers with Dr. Bachman and talk about just a nosedive in the number of incidents. And I think all the work that you, Leah, and the administrators did this year at the beginning of the year in particular to set the norms, to hit reset, and to put structures in place to identify problems early and to get the kids on board with helping with that has made a huge difference in our kids' experience this year. And I think our adults' experiences too. So thank you, everybody, for that work. Really impressed. And Leah, I want to take this moment to say thank you for everything you've done for us over the last 2 years. It's really been great to have you on board and working on these special projects. We probably could not have achieved that without you really being focused on that work. And I wanted to thank you publicly.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. Exceptionally collaborative team all across from top down district leadership to the schools, and tremendously invested in our students, which gives me a lot of pride to say. So thank you.
Yeah,
Sure, go ahead.
and Lee, I just also wanted to thank you for that lovely note you sent the board. It was really heartfelt and thank you for the 2 years. I'm very grateful that we had you and all the support that you you offered our kids and staff in terms of wellness and social emotional learning. You've really been invaluable to us and thank you so much and good luck wherever you go. And I know we'll see you around town with all your 3 kiddos.
Absolutely.
It's really been a pleasure and an honor having you here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for everyone in this room too.
Pardon me? No, I was just gonna say to Leah that she and I spoke today at Kathy's celebration. And she had reflected on the fact that not a lot of schools here in Connecticut have a social and emotional individual that's been asked to really take a look at students' behaviors and emotional well-being. And this Board of Education, I know when we went to address that, I'm not sure that we all knew what that was going to look like either. So we made the right decision and you were the right person to fit for us in Old Saybrook. And a pleasure. And thank you for helping families and students and helping us become much more aware of a healthy way to move forward.
That's a nice way to put it, healthy way to move forward. I appreciate that. I feel like we're ending definitely on that note, and that feels really good.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Leanne. Good luck with everything.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Superintendent of schools. Anybody have any questions first? Yeah.
This is the party season. I just go from one event to another, celebrating kids, celebrating programs, very, very busy, but all really happy stuff. And then, of course, legislators are about to stop legislating, thank God. Unfortunately, these last 2 sort of omnibus legislation pieces are just chock full of things that we will need to implement, not next year. Many of them, at least, they've heard us. I've been pushed off a couple of years, but I even received a text late at night from some member of the General Assembly saying that this piling on of education stuff at the end is really becoming burdensome. And I'm saying, yes, no kidding. But that's what's happening. So we spent all this time fighting these things. They disappear out of their original bills and then they pop back in at the end in a different bill. One of them you'll be happy to know is personal finance. And this is why I spend so much time paying attention to what's going on in Hartford, because I try to get ahead of the curve. We try to do that on the HVAC. We've tried to do it. We were able to get the Black and Latino Puerto Rican class up and going faster because we knew it was coming and we wanted to get ahead of the curve. And so it's a lot of time, and it is time that I'm away from the district, either in a Zoom meeting or actually there, but it's time well spent.
What are they doing with personal finance?
They're requiring it.
Oh, I mean, we do it, but guess what?
Yeah,
You know, they're
which
a
is-
little bit behind the
Which
curve.
is so great, except where are we getting all these business teachers?
Yeah.
That's already a shortage area.
Yeah.
So hang on to your business teachers, everybody.
Yeah. But no, good call.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, administrators, that's it for the administrative reports. Feel free to leave if you'd like to. Almost 9 o'clock.
Bye, Kathy, bye.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Teresa, you want your retirement, see you tomorrow.
Still being Old Saybrook.
Welcome aboard, Kara.
Bye, Sarah, thank you. Bye, Courtney. Bye, Julie.
Night, Julie. Correct.
So we will look at our reports by board, committees, and liaisons. So we'll start with budget and fiscal. We'll have this board first.
Right there. Budget pass.
Budget pass.
Old news.
Okay,
Yeah, Kate, so accepted the proposal in November for me to do the representatives on boards of education, which I'm really excited about, because we usually have about 30 students that come. So that's very exciting, and hopefully our new student reps will be able to participate as well.
facility calendar.
So we met May 9th as a facilities committee, met much of what we talked about tonight in terms of the Drucker House. I'll talk briefly about Monument Way, but just want to thank Julie and all of her staff that really have worked so hard and will work over the summer to keep our facilities up to date, aged, and they do a great job. So I just wanted to say thank you to Julie and
Oh, she's still here.
And the other piece, we're meeting tomorrow night on Monument Way. I think we'll have the finishing touches, hopefully have it completed before the start of the school year. And there's a rendering of what we're looking at, who has been intimately involved. We had an architect rendering, and now we have someone who's willing to giving kind services for the landscaping, the brickwork and so forth. We'll just have to pay for the materials. That's not finalized. We'll have a meeting tomorrow night to finalize that as a lighting committee, but that's really exciting news for the high school property, and really recognizing all the folks who, donated money and time and effort. And Monument Way, I think we'll all be proud of in the end. Have an update, our next meeting in September. Hopefully we'll be done.
Maybe before.
Okay. Okay, learn.
That's Steve.
Steve, is still on?
Steve is not on.
Okay. What I report to learn. Strategic planning.
All quiet.
Okay. Demographics,
Nothing.
nothing. Personnel, Karen?
We're finally wrapping that up.
Policy.
Nothing until Jan and I connect. Things come down the pipe. We'll be rocking and rolling.
We are in
I mean, we'll be
policy.
rocking and rolling.
Policies like that.
I will say, chairman's report. I do have some board news to share with everybody tonight. George Chang is going to be resigning from the board.
Resigning.
Yes. So, George has been a board member for, I guess, 16 years. So, I mean, I want to thank him for all his service, all his contributions. I mean, he's an amazing board member from what I've seen for 2 years, and maybe
You mean he's not running again?
He's not running again, but he's stepping down.
He's fulfilling his term.
Resigning.
So he's effectively done.
Yeah, he's done.
Yes.
Okay.
My son too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can't let this moment pass without talking about George for a moment, because he has been my incredible partner in personnel for years and years and years. And without George, he's worked by, it's funny, I think back to when I first came on this board, and it was like, okay, we're just gonna throw you into the fire and figure it all out. There was no orientation, there was no welcome, there was no anything. It was just like, what the hell am I doing here? And that was. So
I don't think anybody will help us last year.
We'll cut that out later.
Gonna be crazy. There's a beep. Edit that. So I look at Jordan and said, we really need to put something in writing, because every time a new board member comes on, I go through the spiel and it's getting tiring. And so let's commit everything to writing. So together, George and I, he's right by my side. We did, the introduction and purpose statement for leadership meetings, for the superintendent evaluation, the whole timeline.
Handbook.
Cleaned up that evaluation process.
Not to mention the handbook, not to mention that so many revisions of the superintendent's evaluation, because we went from 88 questions, yes, 88 questions, thank you very much. And that's what we have now. I mean, he and I worked for years, just revising until we got to these documents, and they're still works in progress. So he has been amazing. And as a board member, and I know he's not one for compliments. I have a sneaky feeling that's why he's not here, because he just,
We try to hide it,
he can give out the compliments. He just can't take them. I hope he watches this on YouTube at some point, but he's been an amazing board member. His contributions have always been so thoughtful and thought-provoking. And he's one of life's good guys. So I will, very humble, and I will, miss him tremendously. He's been a fantastic board member. So here's to you, George, wherever you are.
It's gonna be a tough loss.
It's a big loss.
He has a good fiscal mind, talk about budget and fiscal.
He's a brilliant mind, that's.
Yep.
Right, I've seen from him over
Mhm.
the years I've worked with him.
At 2 a.m. when we're doing teacher salary schedules and negotiating, he can actually do them in his head. I don't know who's gonna do that work.
Yeah.
Because it won't be-
We all know, whenever he's thinking of anything, he just looks at the ceiling,
That's right, he
and we're all
goes like
quiet,
that.
we all just
He
go
goes up to
quiet.
7.
You just watch him.
And Julie can be on her calculator and he'll beat her
Yeah.
to the number,
Yeah.
and he's always right on, she's like, yep, you're right. He's amazing, he is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, so.
Thanks. Yes, you will. Okay, time is now 9:06. I'm looking for a motion to go into executive session, invite our superintendent Jan Ruccio for purposes of finalizing her superintendent evaluation summary.
So moved.
A second?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Okay, we're now in executive session.
It's back on.
Come we ready.
I'll behave.
Give us one.
Try.
Hashtag coastal grandma.
Okay, we're back on.
Okay,
Remember to be loud.
it's now, it's 9:20 and we are coming out of executive session. Karen,
I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion to approve the superintendent's evaluation summary as presented.
and a second.
Second.
Come Kelly. Any discussion or question? Alan?
No, no, sorry.
Okay.
I was gonna-
I'm in favor. All those in favor?
Okay, now you can do.
Unanimous.
All those, yeah, it's okay. So moved. And
See you all
before-
graduation.
Before we adjourn,
Mhm.
obviously the graduation is next week. Eighth grade is at 10 o'clock next Wednesday morning. And I believe, Jen, do you ever be going to that?
Graduation, Steve is not going, George is not going.
In the morning, I mean. 10 o'clock. the one eighth
I
grade.
don't know the answer. Those were
Okay.
directly sent over
Okay.
to.
Oh, so George is not going to graduation.
Okay, then the 5 o'clock graduation, we need to be there. what,
That's going on.
30 or 40?
That's great.
I don't know what your invitation said.
4:15.
14 at the high school. Okay,
You've lost my mind.
and any other questions or comments, anything before we head out into summer?
So how early do you want us at the middle school? Before the
I
time?
think they should like 9:30.
Yeah.
It's usually not that.
All we do is walk in.
Right.
Walk in. All you need-
Stay for you guys too, so.
Right, so it doesn't really matter.
Yes, all you need to do is have enough time to get in the line in the gym and walk
Yeah,
in.
you don't
Be there
have to-
15 minutes early, you're fine.
And
Just
like-
remember, parking will be a premium.
Right.
Do you have a middle schooler moving up?
No, he's already there. He's already there.
And,
He's moving into sixth grade.
Before we adjourn tonight, again, everyone, I want to thank you for letting me serve as your board chair this year. Appreciate your help, support. It was a tough start, but I think we ended strong and I'm really happy moving into next year. So thank you for your support this year.
Thank you, everybody.
So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Who seconded? You did?
I
made the motion. I made the motion. Who did the second?
Alan
Someone-
seconded.
Alan.
Alan did. I stand.